All right, welcome back to the podcast. I realized the other day when I was reviewing our interviews here, I always start the podcast with the word "all right." I'll say "all right." Well, all right is what we got today here. I am super excited for today's guest. You've already seen his name here on the episode title, but I'm super excited to have him here. Let's get into it, man. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Help me welcome the head coach of Mansfield University in beautiful Pennsylvania, Mr. Jamal Johnson. Jamal, how are you, sir?
I am well so far.
Wait. So far, so you're expecting like maybe the interview doesn't go well, and so maybe you won't do well today or something.
We shall see.
Oh man! All right, this is already going to be fun. I just know it. So always excited. We have amazing guests. Everyone. I think this is episode maybe 149. So we've had 149 mainly coaches, right? I've had some leadership experts on to bring value, and we've had some officials and things like that here. But basically, we've had 149 different coaches on the podcast, and everyone brings a unique shine to it. Some I've personally known, like we had Sue Parks. I used to work for her. That used to be my boss. I've had her on here, and some I have literally never met. And those are always the more exciting ones. And that's me and Jamal today, man. I have never met Jamal. I've actually met Jamal's boss. I met your AD at the
Mhm.
Nationals. I think it was last year. Time skips me now with COVID and all that. So I've met his boss before I've met him. So I'm excited to learn more about you today, Jamal.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
So Jamal, I don't know, are you a movie guy? Do you watch like the Avengers and Iron Man and
I
all
do
Black
actually.
Panther? Yeah, you do.
Yes, I do.
So I do too. I'm a huge Marvel nerd in that sense. My
Mhm.
favorite part of those movies is always the first one because it's the origin story, right? We found out how
Mhm.
Tony Stark becomes Iron Man, how Spider-Man
Mhm.
became Spider-Man. I kind of want to learn your origin story, Jamal. Where does track and field start for you? Were you a club kid? Did you not even do track your whole life? Where does track start for you as an athlete?
Well, track started in 10th grade for me. I played pretty much all the sports growing up. Soccer, tennis. I swam a lot growing up. Football was my first love, though. I love football. I played football in 9th and 10th grade years in high school. But then I realized I was 5'3", 115 pounds, and being playing football in inner city Detroit at a at a public school that wasn't the right size. So I decided to run track my 10th grade year. And then my junior year, I decided to run cross country. And then I just went from cross country to track those last 2 years. So during that time, we had a really good team. We had a really good team. Actually, a couple guys who played in the NFL actually ran on our track team. They ran a 400 and did some throws and stuff for us. Um, my first year out, I actually made it to states in the 4x1, 4x2, and 4x4.
Wow.
And my junior year, I made it for the 4x1, 4x2, 4x4, and 800. And then my senior year, the team had kind of a few people had graduated, and I just made it for the 800 my senior year.
So, because I was going to ask, because you said you mentioned cross country, I was wondering, like, are you a distance runner and you ran cross country, or are you one of these sprinters that ran cross country?
A mixture. So, yeah, it's sort of a mixture. I am someone obviously who has had enough speed to run the 4x1.
Hmm.
And also I could, give you a good 800, but the 2 mile or anything like that, it wasn't good. I could always
Amen.
train well for those events, but I could never like run a good one. I think my best 5K time was like 18 something, but I just I couldn't
Dude.
do it. That's not good for real.
Well, I ran, kind of commonality. I ran 18 once. Now it was for a 2 mile on the tracks. I'm not sure it's the exact same, but I did run 18 once. But I never did it again. My coach pulled me off and never did it again. I also couldn't sprint though. That's the bad part. I couldn't do either of them. So you at least had the one up. You could do some sprinting there. Now, so you grew up in Detroit.
Mhm.
So this is one of those things I had no clue. I'm really bad at pigeonholing people. So because I know you are at Mansfield, and that's how I've always kind of known you, through Twitter and stuff like that. So I
Mhm.
just figured you grew up in Pennsylvania. So Detroit, I love
Oh
Detroit.
no.
No, Detroit is awesome, man. When I coached, that was one of my recruiting. I almost call it a state because I just really focused on Detroit, right? Detroit Renaissance and all those guys, and
Oh yeah.
in a
Uh-huh.
huge club culture for track and field.
Yes.
Like I think of like Harry Weaver,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Were
Detroit
you?
Renaissance.
Yeah. Were you in a?
Detroit Cheetah Track Club.
Yeah, the Cheetahs, right? Exactly.
hmm
Were you in a club? Were you in that kind of the part of the track culture there in Detroit?
So I actually ran from Motor City um,
Yes.
2 summers, my 11th and 12th grade years, but indoor season. So I went to Detroit King. And so
Mm-hmm.
those coaches, Mumford, Mumford, he's now at Oak Park now, Brandon Giles, obviously Robert Lynch, all those people, they were at Mumford and now at Oak Park. And I think Coach Lynch is at, I can't remember what school he's at now. But yeah, all of them kind of, were founded, in Detroit in the 80s and the 70s and stuff like that. And so when Demetrius Hollins, who was one of my high school coaches, and Fernando, who was also one of my high school coaches, they were at Detroit King and they had like a branch of Motor City Track Club. So I did that with them during the indoor season, but in the summertime, I kind of trained with the people at Mumford, all the superstars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is it? Now that you're 10 plus years removed from that, when you're in it, it's all you know, right? So you just know summer comes, I'm going to run the summer track club.
Mhm.
And maybe things are different, today in 2022 in regards to club culture across the country. But back when, when I was at Ball State was when I was really into it. They're recruiting Detroit. So that would have been 02, 03. So call it 20 years ago.
Mhm.
That was a unique culture. You didn't have that same thing going on. And I've just maybe my worldview is small, but I don't remember
Mhm.
that same culture in Philadelphia and Denver. And, there was maybe one club that was there and did good, but in Detroit, it just seemed like there were multiple clubs and multiple high-end clubs. And like I said, with the Weavers and, gosh, who was the guy from Ann Arbor Pioneer who's passed away?
So yes,
Yeah.
Coach Westfield,
Yes.
and
Brian?
yep, Brian
Yep.
Westfield. We
Mm-hmm.
we crossed paths a little bit. Now, I'll
Yep.
get into that a little bit in my story, but I know it is a very unique culture in Michigan because there is no true indoor
Mm.
high school season in Michigan. So some people started the Michigan Indoor Track Series MITS,
Right.
and they just put together a state championship. And there's a lot of people from southeastern Michigan, so Detroit area to Ann Arbor, Jackson. There's a lot of that, a lot of those people. But also you got the west side of the state where you had Donovan Brazier, just to name a couple. But it is a very unique atmosphere for sure, and it is super competitive. We
Oh
Michigan
yeah.
athletes travel. Michigan athletes travel all over the country for indoor track season and the summer season, I should say.
It used to be. I forgot about that MITS series that was held on Michigan's old indoor track. Now,
Yep.
where's that now?
So it kind of changes from year to year.
Okay.
They've had the state championship at Central. They've had the state championship at Eastern.
Hmm.
They've had the state championship at Saginaw.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
with the past couple years, there's a new track in Ypsilanti at Ypsilanti Lincoln, the
Yeah.
only 300-meter track, only high school 300-meter track in the country.
Is that
And
right? Yeah, I guess
they
it is.
they hosted there right in Ypsilanti, right by
Okay.
Eastern Michigan.
What they call it? The lab or something like that?
Yep, the lab. There it
Yeah, I
is.
hadn't been up there yet since that was built here last year or 2 years now.
Mhm.
Wow, so they get to run in a 300-meter track. That's pretty nice for high school.
Spoiled,
Yeah,
spoiled.
exactly, exactly. Used to run it on the flat 200-meter Michigan track, and now they're
Yeah,
at a big old 300. Man, good for
yeah.
them.
Back
That's
in
great.
my day.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, look here, youngin. You can't say that. You're too young for that. I come from Alabama where we used to run on wooden boards that were so deteriorated you'd get splinters just from running, not even falling, and it would literally was in a horse barn. No kidding. Now we've got the crossplex, which that's the palace considered
hmm
the from the old Decatur. Everybody who ran on that track right now that's listening is shaking their head, going, "You have no idea." You had a 200-meter flat at University of Michigan. Boo
Yep,
hoo. You're okay. You're okay.
exactly.
You mentioned a couple of your high school coaches. What was what was track like for you, like your junior and senior year? And what I mean by that was it just a sport you participated in because you said maybe height restrictions maybe didn't make you the greatest tight end for your football team, or was it like did you fall in love with the sport and started researching who the pros were and things like that, and your relationship with your coaches there in high school?
I think it was. I'm a huge competitor, and I was always fast growing up. I was always, one of the fastest people in the class growing up, stuff like that. And I just had a really good time in high school. You know, we would we would travel around. So in high school, we had our boys team and our girls team. They were separate. So the boys team would travel down to Ohio every once in a while and get smacked around. But I like I liked going down there just to compete. You know, and you know, to be in that environment to where, you know, our coaches required us to do more because it wasn't some, you know, it was a small team, and it wasn't like a all comers type thing, I guess. And you know, it was competitive, and I was that competitive. You know, I named myself the captain as a sophomore in high school.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. We
I
have to
must.
explore that a little bit here now, because there's competitiveness, and then there's not so good ego. What was that about? Hold on. I've never had
No,
anybody
it
tell me
just
they named themselves captain. Help me out with that one.
because, like I said, the team was mostly ran by. Oh, it was filled with upperclassmen who necessarily didn't take it as serious as I did.
Mm.
And, you know, I was the person who kind of made sure everyone was doing the right thing and, you know, stretching and warming up properly and all that stuff. And so I was pretty much in high school track, I made sure I did everything right.
Mm.
Going to college, that was a different story.
We'll get there. What was your relationship? So it almost doesn't. I know you said you named yourself captain, but it sounds like you were leading by example, like you were being the captain. I love that
Exactly.
aspect.
Exactly.
What was your relationship with your coaches, and how did they help guide you through senior year?
Great. My relationship with my coaches were great. The head coach, actually, he moved to Texas my senior year. So yeah, he moved to Texas my senior year. But the assistant coach, Fernando, who actually just passed away last year, um, you know, he supported me in every way. You know, he supported me in every way. Um, and, you know, up until he passed away, you know, we're always in contact still.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. I love hearing those stories, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. So you're going through junior, senior year. Now you are officially the captain. Because if you were doing that your sophomore year,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that just kind of blossomed and kept growing through junior and senior year. And you mentioned you went to college. Talk about what was that process like for you? Like, what were you looking for to go to school? Where'd you end up going? And really important for me, I love this question, is where were you thinking off the track? What were you thinking for a major and a profession? Was coaching in your brain at all at this point?
Yikes! It was not. It was not. I necessarily didn't want to go to college. I wanted to go to college to run track. You
Mm.
know, I didn't know anything about the recruiting process at all. Um, you know, raised as an only child, you know, single mom type thing. You know, my mom didn't go to college. Only my uncle went to college, but you know, they weren't my parents. So, you know, it was a completely, you know, different situation, a new situation for me. And I ended up going to Eastern Michigan because a couple other people who ran for Motor City Track Club
Oh yeah.
decided to go to Eastern Michigan, and we were all going to be roommates. It was me and three other people, and my actual roommate, not my sweet man, my actual roommate, actually decided to go to USC 2 weeks before we were supposed to move in. That's a you sipping your drink.
Southern Cal?
Yes,
Well,
yes,
that's a
Southern
little.
Cal.
I love Eastern Michigan, but Southern Cal's a little bit different here. Okay, wow,
Exactly. So I couldn't be mad at him. You know, I couldn't be mad at him.
true.
So yeah, I decided to go to Eastern Michigan with some of my friends from Detroit, and that was that.
Oh, so who were your coaches during that time there at Eastern Michigan?
So John Goodrich was
Yeah.
the cross country coach at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Brad Fairchild was the head coach at
Yeah,
that time.
Brad. Yeah.
Um, Probably 2 months of me being at Eastern Michigan, Brad actually got let go.
Mm-hmm.
So John Goodrich was the coach of the entire program,
Okay.
and I was one of 40 in the recruiting class.
Wow.
So I found myself doing 13-mile long runs on Sundays when I'm a person who didn't really do that at all in high school,
Yeah.
and I wasn't really it wasn't really my athletic base, I guess. I
You're
guess you
being
should
too
say.
kind because you're saying not really. Let's be real here. You were a
It,
sprinter, right? You didn't change. You said you did a little bit 800 maybe in your senior year, but
mhm.
you're still a sprinter. Not really is not in the definition here. No 13-mile runs should have been done.
No, we would
Wow. I'm not
because
sure you.
if you
I'm not sure you should have been doing 13-minute
no,
runs.
it
So,
was it was
wow.
a lot, but I came in with those other guys who ran the 800 too, so
Mhm.
we were all like with Coach Goodrich at the time,
Mhm.
and I kind of just was a number to be honest, and
Mhm.
I got hurt um, the summer leading into my freshman year of college, just trying to prepare myself for college, starting to do the longer runs and stuff, and I ended up getting I think tendonitis at my knee. And yeah, it just wasn't a good situation my freshman year at Eastern Michigan, and I'll say that I probably wasn't the best athlete either at that time, just because I don't think I was mature enough. I certainly didn't, having all the freedom and then being able to eat whatever you wanted to eat.
Yeah.
It was different.
And maybe we would change that, right? You said you weren't the best athletes because I think of talent, like how fast in that sense, but you're
Mhm.
talking about the best person in that sense, like yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, the transformation from high school to college, which it's a big deal. First of all, we're talking about
Mhm.
18-year-olds. Our brain isn't fully formed until we're
Mhm.
25 people. So 18-year-olds going from a high school, even and I grew up what sounds a little bit similar. You talked about single parent. That's the way I grew up as well.
Mhm.
So even though there's some freedom there, right, because of you just don't have two adults overlooking you a lot of times,
Right.
right? But
Uh-huh.
college is a whole different ball game, and so maybe some of those. I don't necessarily want to call them trappings, but some of those opportunities you took advantage of, which maybe
Mhm.
you shouldn't have. Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
So how did you stick with Eastern Michigan, or where did you go through college?
So yeah, I stayed there.
Oh,
I
good,
was
good.
actually going to transfer to Concordia in Ann Arbor,
Yeah, great school.
but I am not the biggest fan of school. So for me
Mm,
transferring, I would have had to start over with all my credits, and
mm,
that's not something I was interested in doing.
mm-hmm.
So I just kind of stayed there. I kind of started training myself a little bit, and that was it. After about a year and a half, that was my track career.
And what about academically? What were you thinking about studying, and what were you thinking about a career, if at all, at that point?
Yeah, so I actually went to school for mortuary science, which is, yeah, it was, I really had no idea what I want to do in college. And then I decided, okay, well, I decided to do mortuary science. I went on a few job shadowing experiences and all that stuff. And then I just realized it was too much science for me. So
Yeah, I'd say it's a cool sounding major, but it's a lot of science. Yeah.
it was a lot of science. And I just realized that wasn't for me. After my freshman year of college, I definitely considered dropping out. I
Mm,
was really stressed at the time, but the only reason I didn't drop out because my grandfather, who I lived with, he reminded me of how important education is because he wasn't allowed to get an education growing
mm,
up.
right.
So I really, went back and tried and finished for him.
Yeah, Grandpa has something that you didn't have at that point, and that was called perspective, right? He's like, "Hey, man,
Hmm.
you've got this opportunity. I know you may think it sucks, but you know what sucks more? Not even having the opportunity to go to school based on the. I
Exactly.
assume with Grandpa it was based on the color of his skin. That's why he couldn't.
Hmm.
Maybe some other economic factors as well, but yeah, it's a
I
whole
think it was
different.
all of that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all of it.
And he's sitting there looking at you like, "Yo, dude, you got this opportunity. Like, I know it sucks, but come on, man, you can do this." Right, right. That's
Absolutely.
cool. I'm glad you had that person in your life that could kind of give you that perspective and realize that as much as it sucks, it's still doable here, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you mentioned a year and a half. Did you run all 4 years at Eastern?
Oh no. So I was redshirted my freshman year. I ran unattached in maybe one or two meets my freshman year. And then that was it. I kind of started training myself after my freshman year. Um, I would go to some unattached meets by myself, just whether if it was Ohio, going to Finley, or
Mm-hmm.
running at what's university was that Adrian
Mm-hmm.
outdoor season. But other than that, it was just me.
It's tough. I mean, team is so important, right? Having a network of people and specifically a team, right, with track, doing it on your own. That's people think sometimes it's cool to be solo, but that's
No, and,
tough.
and I think that I think the hardest part of all of that was at that time, Eastern Michigan was split, as you know.
Hmm.
At that time, my freshman year, I felt like talent wise, I was good enough to contribute. Maybe not now because they hired Coach Roberts. He's doing an amazing job of recruiting and stuff. But at that time that year, I definitely felt like I could contribute. But it wasn't my time. It wasn't meant for me.
Yeah, wasn't your path at that point,
Hmm.
right?
Absolutely.
So you dropped off the team and but kept being a student, kept working
Hmm.
towards your degree. Well,
Hmm.
so I'm super interested. What did you end up getting your degree in? And if mortuary science, which again sounds cool, but that's really tough, and you got to work with dead bodies, but they don't talk back to you, so maybe there's that
Oh,
bonus. What did you end up getting your degree in?
so one of my friends who was actually who stayed in on my floor in the dorm, he was in physical education, non-teaching at that time. It was physical education, non-teaching. And I said, well, I guess I want to stay in the sport. I guess I'm still, I still like sports, so that's what I'll do. So that's the path I took. I was actually took a class taught by Chris Huffins,
Oh
who was at
yeah,
Eastern Michigan, I think for a year or so,
I
and
think so. Yeah.
I think Bryce Spratling was in that class as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so he taught one of those classes. I remember talking to him and all that stuff during that class. But yeah, I kind of just followed that path, and through that major is how I got into coaching.
Really? So during that, that's when coaching kind of clicked. Like, oh wait, I instead of being coached, I can actually coach.
Yeah, so at that time, I knew I wanted to be a coach. I didn't want to teach. I didn't want to really be a personal trainer. So in November of 2012, yeah, November 2012, I had a project to do for a class. It was called the Academic Service Learning Project. And so the PE teaching major or students, they had to go into a school and basically infuse technology into, PE.
Hmm.
But since I was non-teaching, I could pick like a gym or a club or anything and infuse technology into that. And so
Nice.
I was procrastinating, of course. And so I found a club that actually practiced at Eastern Michigan. And I reached out to the coach. I let him know what the project was about. And on that phone call, he was like, well, okay, well, do you want to coach too? I said, of course I do. So they said that was November 2012. And so I went out, which is like down the street, to where they're doing a weight training stuff. And I met the team, and that was that. So November 2012 was when I officially got back into track in a leadership position or in a leadership, position. But it wasn't a lot of coaching for me. It wasn't a lot of coaching. It was really, do the technology stuff that you were supposed to do, and deal with the people who he didn't want to deal with that day.
Sure, sure.
So,
But
um,
I find that interesting. You weren't necessarily. It sounds like you weren't necessarily searching for a coaching role. You had to do this thing for class,
right.
but that coach, I mean, think about the power of that one question on your life here. Said, "Hey, yeah,
Hmm.
do you want to coach?" And you're like, "Well, yeah, actually, I do." And even though the coaching might not have been what you wanted or thought,
Right. And that was fine.
it got you started into that role of like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be a coach here." That's interesting. Like you can almost boil down your coaching career to one question. If that guy doesn't ask you, I assume it was a guy. I'm sorry. If
Yeah.
that coach doesn't ask you, "Hey, do you want to coach?" I don't know. You might be a non-teaching physical ed guy. I don't know what the world a non-teaching physical ed person does, but that's interesting. Do you remember that coach's name?
Oh yeah, Rad Greaves.
Yeah,
Rad Greaves.
yeah.
He was actually a professional driver. He drove motorcycles, and I think he did a little bit of car stuff too.
Oh
But
wow.
he after that life was over with, he was a roofer in Ypsilanti, a very popular roofer, did very well. But he started a track club, which which was odd.
Well, that's what you do
Um,
in Detroit and Ypsilanti, the Michigan man. You just start a club. It don't matter.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't even know what inspired him to do that, but a lot of very talented athletes came through that club, and so it wasn't a lot of coaching. I was only there for an indoor season. I learned a lot that indoor season just from the aspect of the travel, the hotel and stuff. We would go down to Kentucky. We made it to New Balance Indoor Nationals that year, and a couple other places. Just being around that high level of athlete that November 2012, and then going to 2013. That worked out. I did do the summer program with them, and the AAU Junior Olympics was actually held at Eastern Michigan that year.
Mm.
So I got to be behind the scenes on stuff like that, and it was a very, very good experience for me.
Is it fair to say that the coaching bug bit you during this time? Like, is your next, so as we work towards the next stage in your journey here, is it, oh yeah, I'm finding the next coaching job now? Or was there still openness of like, I don't know, I may go back and get a graduate degree in mortuary science or something? I don't know.
So I was definitely set on, coaching at that time.
Mm.
After the summer of 2013, I told the coach that I was done. I wasn't coming back. It was my last year of college. I just wanted to kind of focus on finishing school. But when I did leave, I told everyone, and I had an athlete reach out to me and say, "Hey, can you still coach me?" Like, not really. I just want to go to school at this point. And so her name was London Renfro, and she lived in She went to Ann Arbor Pioneer,
Yeah.
where Coach Westfield was, and we just kind of trained, and that was it. So she would actually catch the bus from Ann Arbor to Ypsilanti.
Wow.
We would use U of M's 200-meter flat track for practice. We would use Bowen Fieldhouse for practice. I was a student at Eastern Michigan, obviously, so I used the Eastern Michigan Rec.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we would use Ypsi High School for practice. So we're just kind of all over the place. But she had a really good year. She ended up finishing fourth, the indoor state championship. I think her best time there was like 58.4 or something like that. And yeah, that was 2013 going into 14.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm finishing up the state championship in the winter of 2014, I get a call from a high school. I'm in class taking, a final, and I get a call from this school, and listen to the voicemail, and they're saying, "Hey, this is the AD from Wayne Memorial High School. Can you come do an interview with us?" I'm like, "Where's Wayne Memorial? What are you talking about?" Like, I didn't even know what school that was, where that school was, and I didn't even remember doing any applications at that point. So I have no idea what they saw because I didn't have a resume, I didn't have a resume. I really just had London for real. And so I ended up going to the interview. I was super nervous. I didn't know what to wear, anything like that. And I got the head coaching job at a high school.
Wow. Well, tell me the name of that high school again.
Wayne Memorial.
Wayne Memorial. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I was, I think, maybe 22 or 23 at the time.
Were you the head coach?
Yep.
Wow. So my favorite question, and it'll be asked again because you're the head coach at Mansfield now, but my favorite question to ask people when they become their first time head coach is, were you ready? At 22, I'm going to go ahead and answer. Yeah, okay. You're shaking your head. Exactly. There's no way.
No.
How did you navigate being 22? You didn't even know what to wear to the interview. How did you know how to schedule buses, schedule track practices, academics, etc. as a high school head coach?
Well, I didn't. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff because I was not in a program before. I was not in a high school program. I just had that club experience in 2012, and then I just did it on my own with London. The only thing I had experience with was creating a name because London was going to a meet, the indoor season. I think it was in Ohio. I think it was at Findlay, and we needed a team name. And my wife and I, we were in LA Fitness at the time. And like, man, I need this team name. We're just looking around, and we see this word on the wall, and it was intensity. So I named my club Intensity Track Club.
Nice.
And yeah, that right there, I know you kind of talked about that phone call with the coach, but that right there, seeing that name on the wall, that was really the start of a lot to come.
Okay, well then let's unpack that word a little bit here then, because I love when things mean something to people, right? So you said, and you tell me, is it the word intensity, or was it the I'm gonna call it the ability, but the creation of the track club? What was it that you like? You that seems to be a pretty marked time in your life right there. What was it? Was it the word intensity or creating a track club name?
Both, because us having to have a name meant that, okay, this is official now.
It's legit.
Yeah, it's legit now. And like I said, it was me really just doing her a favor. So, that's when things became real. And, like I said, me and my wife, we were trying to think of, what can we call this club, or not even a club? What can we name ourselves so we can get into this meet?
Mhm.
And then, we just saw, we had, gone through a number of words, and then we are just in LA Fitness one day,
Mhm.
and we just saw the word and like intensity, and that was it.
So you went through a lot of words. Obviously, like that wasn't the first word you saw that maybe sparked interest, but something with intensity like stuck, gave you
Hmm.
whether it gave you identity or you were able to put your current identity into that word. So tell me about intensity. What does intensity mean for you? Are you one of these? Are you at practice? Are you the guy who's yelling, yelling, yelling? Are you the guy
Not at
who
all.
maybe I never coached hurdles, so I am going to dive deep into learning how to coach hurdles? That's a form of intensity. What tell me what
No,
intensity
it
means to
wasn't.
you.
It wasn't any of that. It was just it just felt right.
Hmm.
It just felt right. I'm not a high energy person. I am very much so an introvert. Like I said, I was raised as an only child.
Mhm.
So even me doing this is way out of my comfort zone, believe it or not.
Well, you're doing great, Jamal. You're honestly, you're
But
doing awesome.
it just felt right. It just felt right. And it just kind of flowed. And
Hmm.
I think I ran about London at that time, and that was it.
Tell me you have a tattoo of like intensity on your arm or something.
No, but we
Dang
will
it.
get into that because
Oh
I
boy.
did get in some trouble with some tattoo stuff. So.
Oh my God. I don't even know how to bring that into this story. Okay. So, Intensity Track Club, you're the head coach of Wayne Memorial High School.
Mhm.
How many years were you there and how did it go?
I was there from 2000 to March 2014 until, I guess you can say, June 2017.
Okay.
It
So,
kind of depends. So,
so 3 seasons? I lost count there. I'm sorry. Two seasons,
uh,
3 seasons,
let me see, 14 to the 5th. So 17, I mean, I'm sorry, 4 seasons,
four
four
seasons. Got it.
seasons.
Got
But I guess 3 years because that first
Yeah.
March I started.
We count our lives in seasons, man. So four
Yeah.
4 seasons.
So 4 seasons I was there, and at that time I'm working all type of different odd jobs because,
Oh, right.
oh my gosh, it's
Because
so
you're
many
just
different.
coaching, you're not teaching. So
Oh yeah, because I didn't. Oh yeah, I'm just
you're
coaching.
yeah, you're 3 to 5, just blanket time there, 3 to 5
Hmm.
roughly. But you still got to eat, and you're married.
Yes.
She's got to eat, and etc. Yeah, yeah. What
Yes.
tell me the craziest odd job you did, man.
Probably the craziest one. Probably the summer of 2013 when I started. I was a summer maintenance person at an apartment complex,
Yeah.
and that was mainly flipping apartments, just getting them ready, for the
Hmm.
next person. We were always up against a deadline.
Yeah.
I remember trying to finish painting this cabinet while people were trying to move into the place. Was it was something else. But I would say that's the craziest one because we also had to, you know, evict people, and that, wasn't the best. Or we had to go into apartments that people, abandoned, and clean up all that stuff too. So
Well,
that was probably the craziest one.
you know what I love about that, Jamal? That actually tells me a lot about you. That you so you have your college degree at this point, right?
Hmm.
So you're a college
Actually,
degree.
no. At that point, no. I was in my last year, but.
Okay, so you're call it months away from having
Hmm.
a college degree
Hmm.
adult that's married, that has a purpose in regards to life. Like I want to be a coach. I'm going to be a coach, and yet you didn't allow your ego to get in the way of what it would take to get there. So you humbled yourself
Oh
to do
yeah.
some. I'm pretty sure when I asked you the craziest job and you started thinking about that job, you started thinking some of the maybe not so pleasant. We're not even going to talk about them type jobs that you had to do during that apartment time, right? But you humbled yourself to do that part, so to build the career that we're talking about today. I love that, man. That really does say a lot. There was an ego that, man, I can't. This is below me. I'm not. I'm a coach. I
Oh
can't do
yeah. I
this.
mean,
I love that, man.
I have no issue doing any job really. And so, and I jump forward a little bit just to talk on that. So our program here for fundraising last year, we decided to work concession stands at Penn State, and I just had so much fun doing that because, like, when it comes to like donations stuff, I don't like just putting out my hand and asking for money. I would much rather work for it and earn
Mm.
it, compared to just, okay, well, hey, we need $2,000. Can you give us $2,000? I'm like, I would rather definitely go spend all day. Well, I love football, so I can go there and do that.
I'll say it a different way. You're expressing this. I'm just going to say it in a little bit different words. You would rather give value to get money than versus just hand me money. So when you're
Mm-hmm.
working concession stands, you're giving value, you're helping
Mm-hmm.
people, etc. That says a lot about your character there, my friend. I like that.
Yeah, we'll
So
see.
so yeah, we got some tattoo stories to get into here. So keep talking about Wayne Memorial. How was that experience of 4 seasons as head high school coach? That's a big job.
Uh, it was good. It was good, and that's probably the most success I've had thus far, I would say.
Hmm.
As far as like the big numbers and stuff. So the very first day I went in to Wayne Memorial, there was this 10th grader. His name is Montel Hood. He told me flat out, I've never met this guy before. I want to be the best ever. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you what do you mean you want to be the best ever? And he was a guy. So Wayne Memorial is not known for sports at all. They're really bad. I think they lost like they hadn't won a football game in like 8 years straight.
Oh,
And there was talent there. So Montel, before I got there, he was a freshman. He ran 50.3 as a freshman.
yeah.
And I came in, became the coach at that time. So he flat out told me he wanted to be the best, and I held him accountable to that. I said, okay, well, let's do it. So that first season with him in 2014, he ran 48.8. That
What I'm really curious though, did he name himself captain his sophomore year?
he was.
When you said he came up to you and was like, "I want to be the best ever," I was like, "Man, sounds like Jamal naming himself captain here. Look out! This sounds like
No.
another version of Jamal here."
No, we were very close though,
Sure.
and we still are. We were very close at that time, and he was the only person who stuck with the entire program
Mm,
from day one.
mm,
Because that summer, 2014 summer, is when I was telling people on the team, hey, if you want to do summer track, I do have a AAU club. If you want to do that, we can do that. And so I think we had like 6 athletes that summer from my school join. We went to the Junior Olympics in Des Moines, Iowa.
yeah.
Me and my wife now, she wasn't my wife then. We just rented 2 cars and we we drove to Des Moines. We had a 4x4. Montel ran a 400. And I think we had a long jumper as well that year.
Wow.
Then 2015 was just regular year. I kind of changed his training up a little bit. He ran I think 48 flag 154, but in 2016 is when the program really went to a new height, a really big height. So Montel actually broke the state record in the 400-meter dash.
Wow.
Yeah, so he didn't do any other sports. He trained with me starting in September. We did fall training. We went and we practiced indoor season. I had access to Eastern Michigan and U of M.
Mhm.
Um, at the high school, they had 3 different gyms. They had a cardio room. They had sort of a square track in one of those gyms. But Sue Parks allowed me to use Eastern Michigan's track
Mhm.
for my club, and so I was very grateful for that.
Mhm.
And so yeah, he was the only one that stuck through it, all year long pretty much. And he ran 46.29, and that was a huge moment for me personally and the state, because that state record was actually older than I was at the time. It was actually set in 1990, and it was huge. It was huge.
Yeah.
It was huge. And so obviously at that time I'm starting to consider, okay, well, I think I can coach at the college level. Beforehand I didn't know how, I knew I wanted to, but I didn't know how to even get there, because I didn't really run in college. I didn't really have any connects. I don't have
Right.
all SEC behind my name or anything like that.
Right.
So yeah, so that happened in June of 2016. But at that same time, his younger sister was also starting to make a name for herself. Anavia Battle, who just represented the United States last year in the Olympics.
Oh, Ohio
Uh,
State.
yes, Ohio State.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
That
So,
was his sister.
yep, his little
Yeah.
sister.
You can't beat genetics, man. Holy cow.
You can't. No, you
Wow.
can't. You can't. And I tell this to everyone, that Montel was definitely the hardest working athlete I've ever had, even to this
Mm,
day.
mm,
But Anavia, she just kind of had it. There was a time where Anavia couldn't complete workouts on a daily basis. Oh yeah, I was extremely hard on her. She couldn't complete workouts for a long time. But as a junior in high school, she ended up going 23.9 and like 11.9. And so Montel graduated 2016. And once he graduated, I also had a few other very good 400-meter runners. They graduated too. So now, as a coach, I have a new challenge. Now I have a lot of short sprinters, on the team. And I had to change stuff up. I changed stuff up, and Rondell Ruff is one of those people who kind of helped me through that change. He gave me an opportunity in the fall of 2016 to be a volunteer coach on his staff, because he was the head cross country coach at Wayne State in Detroit. And so he let me facilitate his sprinters and hurdlers fall program while he was a head coach for cross country. So I was very fortunate to have that experience, and I'm forever grateful to him. Me and him are very close still today.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I like him. So you brought up a good point there. It made me think about this, be a little curious about this. So you mentioned, you didn't have, call it a traditional college athletic experience, right? You didn't necessarily study, biomechanics as a major or kines or anything like that. But to take a kid from 50.3 down to 46, I mean, maybe you could have gotten lucky and that happened, but it seems like you had to have coached that kid pretty well, right? So what were you doing during these 4 seasons at Wayne Memorial? Because now you're a coach, right? I mean, you're established. You're coaching your own program. You're making your own decisions. What are you doing? How are you creating your coaching style and philosophy? And you've listened to a few of our interviews here. We don't talk X's and O's.
Right.
I'm talking about more of like coaching education, mentors, like you already mentioned, Coach Ruff. What were you doing to learn how to actually coach, not the paperwork and scheduling,
right,
but the actual, like, I'm going to make this kid run this workout today and this workout the next day, etc. What were you doing coaching education wise?
So the very first year in 2013, when I was coaching London on my own, I actually did the level 1 that year, 2013. So I was getting ahead of the curve, because I felt like I needed to know a little bit more, because like I said, I didn't plan on coaching. Right. It just kind of happened with her. And so I did that. It was actually taught by Harry Weaver at Detroit Renaissance. So awesome. Yeah. So at Detroit Renaissance. So at that point, that was the only education that I had. I didn't really have anyone else besides Rondell to really even ask. It was really nobody even asked, for real. So
I love the self-awareness that you went to level 1. Like there was like, oh, okay, I know I need to know more. As I'm sorry, did you say the quarter miler's name was? Did you say Devin Hood?
I'm sorry, Montel.
So as Montel's going from 50 to 48, and there probably was a 47 stop in there, and then a 46. You start, 48's one thing. That's, that's awesome. But once you get sub 48, man, like it's a different, for high school, it's like, oh, I've got someone like really special, like they can do some potentially big things here. Did you reach out to anybody for specifically like on quarter miler training, or how did you make sure you were doing what's right for the athlete as their coach?
So Montel, that actually did happen. So even after his junior year of his high school season, athlete did change up his training, because even though he had ran 48, 2 years in a row at this point, it wasn't enough. I knew that he was better than that. And so right after the high school season, we're going into the summer season, I completely changed everything up. He was definitely an athlete who could handle more volume. And so from really just 6 weeks of training.
But let me ask you, when you made that change, so that's a pretty drastic change, because you said you completely changed his training up, right? Usually that's not a good thing in the big scope of things, not necessarily judging this moment. Why did you make that decision? Was it because you had a discussion with someone, because you took a level 2 or something that you learned more about quarter miler training, or was it just, I think I should be doing this? Was it just a gut feeling at that point?
A gut feeling. I had given him, a number of speed workouts, and just being with him, a year and a half at that point, all year round. I just knew, what he can do. And I also had a girl who ran, 54.9. I wouldn't do that with her. I would not do that with her for sure, because she was a girl who could run, 12.2 and 24 low and stuff like that. But I wouldn't do that with her. But with Montel, at that time at the time he ran 46.2, his best 200 time was like 22.4.
Mm.
So I knew that he was a different athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the 6 weeks of training that we changed up, that he ran 154 and took second in Junior Olympics in the 800
Mm-hmm.
that summer.
Yeah, you'd mentioned he
So,
had done some 800-meter, right? Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that was it. So 2016 happened, and going into 2017, I had another talented group. Anavia was a senior at this time. The girl who I mentioned, who ran 54, Ryan Draper, she didn't actually go to my high school, but she was a part of my club. Brandon Smiley, who ran for Coach Edgar at Indiana Tech, he ran 21.6 out of high school and then ran 20.6 there at Indiana Tech. Now he's at Auburn with Randy, who was one of the people who I kind of started a relationship with because he
Yeah,
was
great guy.
recruiting in Navia and all that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
um, so that's when I had like the short sprint, 60, 100, 200 group. I sort of kind of changed that up then. And, Rondell was the person who, seeing, like I said, facilitating his program in the fall of 2016 kind of started, giving me ideas with the short sprint stuff because I wasn't a short sprinter. And so um, him giving me that knowledge did set things off for sure.
Mm-hmm. So with those kids, because you mentioned you don't have any earlier at that point, you didn't have connections in college and things like that. But now, I mean, these kids are getting recruited
Exactly.
by tons of schools. You
Exactly.
already mentioned Randy. Shout out to Randy, love him to death, and
Mm-hmm.
what he does with my good friend
Mm-hmm.
Andreas, the Altus One Track Mind podcast. You got to check
Mm-hmm.
that out. He does a great job. Both of those guys hosting that podcast. So now you're getting to know not only connections, your network is building out, right? Because you're meeting these coaches who are recruiting those kids, but you're also maybe starting to see what that level looks like as a career, not just the people, but okay, what do you actually do for a living as a college track coach?
Mm-hmm.
So did you start kind of getting, I keep using the bug to be a college coach at this point?
Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
knew that maybe 2016 wasn't, even though I had the state record, I knew that maybe I wasn't just ready yet.
Mm.
But in 2017, I'm like, yes, this is, the time because Anavia she was running really well at that time. And I spent that summer 2017, I probably emailed 400 universities, honestly, just to email them my resume and say, hey, even if you're not looking for someone, here's my resume. And I spent countless days doing that stuff. And
All right, so this is
you
near and
know,
dear to my heart, Jamal. So we're gonna put you on, or either gonna put you on blast, or you're gonna have like my huge admiration here, because
oh,
I'm an emailer myself. Okay, on those 3, 4, whatever number it was, emails, did
mhm.
you individually send those emails, or did you just put everybody in the blind carbon copy and say, "Hey, coach"?
Oh
What
no, I did it individually. That's why it took me so long.
Atta
That's
boy.
why it took me
That's
so
the way
long.
to do it. That's hustle right there, my friend. You can have all the life hacks and stuff, and there are plenty you should be doing. Individual attention for relationship building, man. That's the way to
Mhm.
do it, Jamal. I love it. Thank you. You got my admiration. No blast here, man. You did it the right way, my friend. Awesome.
Yeah, I was up in my room because I was still living at home at the time, on my 6-year-old laptop. Just
Oh, so it took you a long time.
it took me a long time to do that, but I
Oh.
knew that this was, the time, to do it. And then, Anavia, she won the Junior Olympics in the 100 and 200. And it was, I think one of the things that made me know it was the right time was the Junior Olympics was actually held at Eastern Michigan that year. So I think
Oh.
that was like the full circle moment. I
Yep.
started,
So everybody
there.
came to Ypsilanti.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my first one as a coach was in 2013 there. I graduated from there, and then my very last one was there as a coach. And so that was definitely the time.
All right, I can't get off these emails. Hold on, Jamal. So our two real big goals here on the Gill Connections podcast is, one is to uplift and honor your journey, our guest's journey, and hopefully I'm doing that.
Mhm.
Only you can say I am, and the people who listen tell me I was a jerk to you or something. I don't know, but so that's 100%, and I love that. I'm so excited, and I love that this topic is coming up because this is another one that's just near and dear to my heart here. So the other goal of the podcast is to bring as much value, immense amount of value to people who choose to listen to the podcast, right? Our podcast is not for the faint of heart. We are not a 20-minute, 30-minute podcast. Like if we get done in an hour, like we're already at 48 minutes, 49, we ain't making less than an hour. But we average an hour and a half, right? So if you're going to, invest that much time into our podcast, into your ears here, we want to bring value. So what I want to know is, Jamal, on those hundreds of emails that you sent, no names, no putting anybody on blast here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Did you receive any responses? And did you receive many responses? And I have to assume you probably, and this is a bad assumption because this is a bad omen here, that you received a lot less responses than no responses at all.
I probably received less than 10 responses. And one of them was telling me that I didn't attach my resume. So...
Wait. No. I love that. Hold on. Okay, first of all, on one hand, so I'm like pulling on both sides of the tug of war here. On one hand, when you tell me that 10 out of, I'm just gonna use the number 300, 10 out of 300 people responded back, I have a little bit of like, hey, coach, come on, why didn't you respond back to this kid? He's trying. You're still a kid at this point. You're still a kid now. You're so young. I get to say that as the old man, 46-year-old here now. So, but coach, why didn't you respond back to this kid in some form or fashion? It didn't have to be a book, but hey, good luck for you. We're not hiring, but keep at it or whatever, some kind of inspiration. On the other hand, I have tremendous amounts of empathy, and you know this now as a college coach, specifically as a college head coach, that there are so much stuff to do, right? Like your email was
absolutely.
Your email was probably one of 40 that day, and kids saying I want to run for you, and they don't even run.
Absolutely.
Track, all this kind of stuff, right? So I have a lot of empathy for both there. I do love that coach replied back and said, "Hey, you didn't attach your resume," because that means like they thought they looked at it and just didn't hit
exactly.
They easily could have said, "Hey, look, this chump didn't even put his resume on here. Delete." But like I love whoever that was, man. I know whoever did that is listening right now. Shout out to you, man. That is, giving of yourself back to other people. So I love that. And I love that. Okay, I'm gonna get off the emails. I just was curious because I love that hustle. It's one thing if you know that it's I'm gonna call it a spam, like a mass email to not respond. Man, you didn't give me the you didn't give me any what's the word I'm looking for, respect of an individual email. Why should I give you one? But to individually do it, man, that's hustle. That to me is the word. That's the definition of the word hustle there. And I just wish, because I know that happens a lot. It happens frequently, I should say. And so I wish more coaches. And again, a lot of empathy. I know the time scales were, by the time you're listening to this, we're in April. You're getting ready for the Drake relays, and your conference meet is the next week, for crying out loud. It's a lot of preparation. So I get it. You're recruiting, etc. So I get it. However, when we have these opportunities, when an athlete reaches out or a coach who wants to be on that level reaches out, man, there is some part of me that just has a desire to help that person. It doesn't have to be a huge time commitment, because I know that's what we're always afraid of, but giving counsel to people based on your experience, your experience is so valuable. So to give that back to someone who's looking to get on that level, I just think that's like one of the holy grails out there to help people, even athletes, because we see this a lot on social media. And you're big on Twitter, and so I'm that's where we know each other from, is Twitter, right? When we see coaches talk about the kid didn't put their PRs or their grades and stuff, and I get it, because again, you're so busy.
Right.
I have so much empathy. We're talking about 17, 18-year-old kids.
Right.
Kids.
Yeah.
Like, have some empathy for them as well. You were once them, not that long ago. Okay. I'm going to step off my soapbox here, Jamal. You got me going there. All right, so we're in our fourth year at Wayne. You've got, I can never pronounce her name. I'm so sorry. Miss
Anavia
Battle, who, what a last year's NCAA and the trials. Wow, man, that was, I distinctly remember her because she killed it, and the thrower from Ohio State killed it. I was just like, man, Ohio State is doing really good. What do we do? What you want to coach college? Your last, well, we know it's your last year of Wayne Memorial. What's our next step here?
Actually, that was I got 3 interviews that summer. Yeah, I got 3 interviews.
Dude.
One was with Coach Edgar from Indiana Tech. That I could have been better in an interview, but also how his program, he has a lot of people, a lot of people on this team, and that that's I have a small team person. It wasn't the right fit.
Mhm.
However, I did accept a job at Lindsey Wilson
Hmm.
in Kentucky,
Mhm.
and he actually came. The head coach actually came up there to the Junior Olympics in Michigan, and we talked about everything and whatnot. But at the same time, I was getting I had to set up an interview. I'm sorry, I set up an interview with University of Southern Indiana in Evansville, Indiana.
Mhm.
So I already accepted the Lindsey Wilson job, but I had the in-face interview at Southern Indiana on Monday. I was supposed to move to Lindsey Wilson on Tuesday.
Mhm.
So I'm dead broke at this time. So because I quit my job and I quit my other job in February of 2017. So I'm dead broke. So I scratch up some pennies to drive down to Evansville, Indiana. I do the interview. I had a really good feeling, about it. And what I always say now, whenever I take an interview somewhere, I'm not leaving without the job.
Mhm.
I'm not coming home without the job. So if I ever get on campus somewhere, I'm not coming home without it. That's just that. But yeah, I went down there on a Monday, and it was a really good interview. Coach Hilliard is an amazing coach at Southern Indiana. What he's been able to do with the distance program for over 20 years at
Yeah.
this point was good. Chase Broughton, who was the head coach at Bellarmine, was his assistant at that time, and I know you know I know you know who that is.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
it was a very good experience. I knew that that was where I wanted to be. Even though he didn't tell me I had the job, but I was telling myself I had the job. And
Mhm.
so, like I said, I was supposed to move to Lindsey Wilson on Tuesday. And so Coach Gordon is calling me, hey, when you coming down?
Mhm.
Oh, I don't know.
Mhm.
So Wednesday, Coach Hilliard let me know that I got the position. And so, um, yeah, it was good. It was a very good summer. It was a very good summer.
I,
So
I I
go
think
ahead.
there's a lot of lessons there, Jamal. If you haven't personally, and then anybody listening, if you haven't listened to the Boo Schexnayder interview we had here on the podcast, we talk about a little bit of kind of a same similar example there. Because I'll go out on a limb and say maybe Southern Indiana also paid maybe a little bit more than Lindsey Wilson. I'm just assuming.
Oh yeah, it,
Yeah.
it paid it paid 3 times more, and it
Oh,
was a
okay.
full-time position.
Okay, way more than a little bit more. Okay.
It's a full-time position too.
And I know, you put yourself in an awkward situation because, you already accepted the Lindsey Wilson position. So you now had to
Hmm.
tell the coach, hey,
Hmm.
I'm sorry, but for me and my family, we're going to take the other job. And sometimes those are tough. Sometimes, we can play the other side of it and say, hey, Jamal, you made a commitment. You said
Yeah.
yes to Lindsey Wilson. How dare you, less well now negative, you're already supposed to be there on campus, and you tell
Right.
him, you're not going. But when you think about the scope of things for your career and your life, that's the decision you have to make. Now, luckily you did it in a very mature way that, you probably called him up face to face and said, hey, this is not the
Yeah.
answer you want to hear, but here's what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot with the recruits, right? You ever had that recruit you're recruiting and they've already decided to go somewhere else, but they just won't tell you
Yeah.
no? They think they're doing you a favor, like, I don't want to hurt your
Yeah.
feelings, and it's like, man, tell me no so I can move on.
Exactly.
It's the same thing. You could have ghosted Lindsey Wilson for a while and put him on, on the back burner. And coach says, no, he's still coming. Just, it's hard to get a
Oh
hold
no.
of him or something. And here you are in Evansville. So
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that
I
you had the
called him.
maturity of, all right, I got to make a decision for my family and I and for my future,
Hmm.
which means I got to tell this person no. So again, a lot of coming out with your character here, Jamal, of what it means to be Jamal Johnson here. That's really key in my opinion.
I think that's why me and Coach Gordon are still cool now, because I did tell him that he didn't take it hard. He said
Oh, that's important. Yeah.
one of my main goals, this is him talking, one of my main goals was I always want my coaches to get full-time positions.
Mm.
And so even though I technically wasn't one of his coaches, I did get a full-time position. And so
You know, the goal I told you is to uplift and honor coaches. How about that for Coach Gordon? Because he easily could have did the, what in the
mhm,
world, Jamal? You're leaving me hanging here. It's late in the summer, and you were my guy and yada yada yada, almost trying to guilt you into it, right?
Yeah.
And instead, Coach Gordon says, "Well, that sucks." But he had to make his own decision. Well, no, okay, now I've got to go make different decisions up here. Shout out to Coach Gordon, man, dude.
Oh yeah, he's
I
he's
love that
great.
response. I love that response. Okay, let's keep moving, and we cannot forget. You promised me some kind of crazy tattoo stories. I don't
Okay,
know
here we
where
go.
that. I don't know where that fits in. If that's Evansville or Pennsylvania, but we got to make
Okay.
sure we hit it. So let's keep going with Evansville.
Okay, so I guess the tattoo thing kind of came up around that time in 2017.
Oh, I
So
knew it. I knew it.
I bet Anavia, this is me just talking, like I'm 24 at the time. This is me just talking. Hey, Anavia, if you ever make it to the Olympics, we're gonna get matching tattoos. So me thinking that she forgot that, um, last summer after she made the team, sends me a text. Hey, what about those matching tattoos?
Tell me what did you get?
We didn't get it yet
Okay.
because
What are
my
you gonna
wife,
get?
I don't know what it's gonna be. It might be, like you mentioned, it might be intensity
Yeah.
because I want the Olympic rings, but
No, you can't
I
though.
can't do that.
No. That's I was gonna say that's where I was going with. I was like, what it cannot be.
Yeah, I can't do that.
It,
So
it can be for her, but it cannot.
right.
That's a club, man. That
Yeah, exactly. So
our ship has sailed. We are never making that club, right? I
no,
don't know if it's kosher to get them if you coach an Olympian. I could, I might be on board with that, but no, sir,
maybe
you
a half
can't
one or
do that.
something.
No,
Maybe just the rings with no color in it.
just 2.5 rings or whatever it is. Okay, that's awesome. You have to. I know you will post that on social. I want to see these matching tattoos, man. I love it. I love it. Okay, Evansville. Let's keep it Evansville. Your
Okay.
University of Southern Indiana. They do an
Yep.
amazing job down there. Not known for a full program.
No,
Very much a distance
no.
program focus. What were you doing coaching there, and how did it go?
So I was the first full-time assistant ever in program history.
Hmm.
They had some success. They had a national champion in long jump before I got there. Her name was Candace Perry, but there was never really
Uh,
one.
sorry, I got to cut you off there. So Candace Perry is one of my kids at Ball State. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I can't remember.
Okay.
I don't think I actually signed her, but maybe no. I think I signed her and she didn't make grades, so maybe she had to go
Okay.
somewhere. I can't remember, but I love Candace Perry to death. She was amazing, and I totally forgot she went to Southern Indiana and went
Yep.
down
For
there.
2 years, she
She
went
did
here
exactly what I knew
or
she would
there.
do. She was awesome, man. Yeah, I love Candace Perry. Yeah.
Yep. So me starting so late in the year, I started September 1st. So I didn't get to recruit or anything like that. So there were athletes on campus that I was able to work with. And Coach Hilliard gave me some 800-meter runners to work with at that time. So well, I'll backtrack a little bit. So I moved down, I think it was the last day of August, packed up my car and just drove. My son was almost 1 at that time. And his mom, they stayed in Michigan for a little bit, and I had no plan. I had no plan. I had no money. So I remember driving down there. I got there at nighttime, and I find a parking lot. I just found a parking lot, the Planet Fitness parking lot. I go in there, I get a Planet Fitness membership so I can take a shower.
Yeah.
Then I go back out to my car and I go to sleep. That's it.
So
And
mom.
Coach Hilliard actually wasn't in town because he was at a cross country meet. So I go do my official paperwork of stuff that Friday, that first official day. And I guess I misheard what the compliance person was saying because she said, I asked her, where there's some dorms I could stay in. And she said, yeah, I'll see if I have a room. But when she said that, I'm thinking, okay, maybe she does have a dorm room. But no, she meant like a room at her house. And I wasn't gonna do that. So they ended up putting me in a hotel because it was Labor Day weekend. They ended up putting me in a hotel for Labor Day weekend. And Coach Hillier is finally back. And I'm still, in my car, and I explained him, the whole situation and everything. So he allows me to live in his pool house. Actually, it was a pool house, but the pool was actually built over, like it was enclosed pretty much. And they had a couch and a cat in there, and so it was me and the cat in
A
my
room and a
suitcase.
pet.
It was me, the cat, in a suitcase in this pool house for a couple of weeks because, like I said, I was living at home in Detroit. So I would just go around Evansville, go to different leasing offices, and I would go into leasing office. Hey, I don't have any money, but I have my contract from USI saying I will get paid this. I don't have any renting history.
Oh
I have some
man.
credit card history, and so I did find an apartment. It was a 2-bedroom. It was like $530 a month. It was. I liked it. I liked it, and so I ended up moving in there mid-September, and I just had whatever I brought down with me in my car. So that was a laptop, a like a those TV dinner tables, those small collapsible tables,
Mhm.
and an air mattress. That was all I had,
That
and my
is
shoes, of
that
course.
that's an amazing story, Jamal, because you know it really makes you think. It really makes you think that this is a hard thing to say to someone's face, but it really is true because it's true for me. It's true for everybody. We're not that special. And what I mean by that is your experience that you had there, it's certainly unique and special to you because you had to go through it, right?
Hmm.
Like I guarantee you, as you were telling that story, you could remember some of those nights in the car, some of those days trying to find, like, you won't rent to me either. Man, am I going to keep living in my car? Like, what's going on here, right? Like, those are
Hmm.
some scary times there, some very alone times.
Hmm.
But there are so many people that have that experience right now that don't have job history, don't have rental
Yeah.
history, that people won't rent to them. And God bless
Hmm.
if they even get a room to rent. It's too high for how much we're paying. That's
Right.
Man, that is an amazing story, Jamal. All to be a track coach.
Yeah, I don't know, how and why, but it happened. They gave me a chance, and I know, like you said, a lot of people don't get that chance, and so I kind of talked to my wife about this a lot. Why me? Why me, and why was I given all these opportunities, and a person who is struggling way more than I am, how come they weren't given an opportunity? And so it's tough when you think about stuff like that, because it does make me sad when I think about things like that and how far I've come.
Doesn't it? I think about your grandpa giving you that talk about, like, I didn't even have this opportunity for school. That story
Hmm.
you mentioned earlier. Doesn't it give you like when you think about exactly what you just said there, like, hey, there's other people that the same situation as me and they still are on the
Yeah.
streets, etc. Why me, right? Doesn't that
Mhm.
give you like I'm missing the word here, but like you have to be successful, Jamal. Like, you've been given this and you've earned it too. Now let's
Yeah.
not be kidding here.
Yeah.
But you have this in front of you, and other people for whatever reasons don't. So you better make the most of it, right? I mean, like, for your family,
Hmm.
raising your children differently than you were raised, helping them
Hmm.
to be better than what you were, and that's exactly what your mom wanted for you. She wants you to be better than what she was and how she had it, right? Your grandfather, obviously, those are important things. I think sometimes that we're in the muck of it every day. We're thinking about nationals coming up and the next meet and getting our cross country schedule set up and our budget meetings and things like that. And we sometimes forget to sit back and think about how blessed and honored we are. And boy, I owe a lot of people, so I
Absolutely.
better get it done, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I appreciate you telling me that story, man. That kind of hits me in regards to some of my story, and then other stories, from friends and stuff. So, and then other stories of countless people that we'll never know and meet,
Hmm.
that have similar and maybe not so positive outcomes to their story. So, thanks for sharing that, Jamal.
Yeah. Not a problem.
How many years at Southern Indiana, and how did that go?
I went from 17 to 20, until from September of 2017 until November of 2020. Um, it was a good experience. That's where I grew up a lot,
Mm-hmm.
personally. As first time athlete, got to live with my family, my son and my wife. It was an amazing experience, and I talk about Evansville a lot. I tweet like every week, I miss Evansville
Oh,
because
yeah.
um, it was a lot of fun there. I made a lot of great relationships. And this is where I first finally get friends in the coaching game. Because Chase, like me and Chase are really cool. The throws coach there at Bellarmine, Jalen Madison.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Jalen. Yep.
Obviously Coach Hilliard, the coaches from Lewis, James Kearney,
Mm-hmm.
Nate,
Oh, James. Yeah.
Dana,
Mm-hmm. Dana.
all those people,
Great
Tyler
people.
Pence, who was actually a former athlete of Coach Hilliard's. He is now at University of Illinois Springfield. Just those relationships we built there, were different. And the fact that, Coach Hilliard got to go to nationals every single season, and I got to tag along and still meet those people. It was great. Speaking of nationals, though, 2017, I've been there maybe a couple months. We actually hosted the cross country national championship.
Oh, wow.
And for some reason, he decided that he needed me to drive the lead car for that.
That's so awesome.
It's not. It was nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it's a job. Like, you got to stay the right distance and not too fast, not too far, and you're looking back, and people are trying to cross in front of you. You're gonna run over people like Frogger. Yeah, man.
It's not even that. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know the course. So for him
that could be a problem.
Put me in that position with all these cameras and all these people, was cool. But let me know that Coach Hilliard trusted me. Because obviously he's a distance coach. When I came here, he said, okay, well, we've never really had a strong program before in sprints and jumps. This is your program, and that was, I got to run it how I wanted to, as long as I don't, break any NCAA rules. I got to do whatever I wanted to do. In some instances, I would have liked a little bit more guidance. Like, for instance, I remember trying to do my first recruiting visit. And I asked him, hey, this is my first one. What are some of the things you do on your visits? What are some of the things that we could do in Evansville? He responded, and I'll never forget, oh, you can do whatever you want. What? I need some type of guidance. What do you do? I've never done this before.
See, you're a man of character. If my first job, my coach would tell me, I'm like, all right, well, we going to Indy, we going to, that would not have been good. I needed those guidelines, man. But I do like the philosophy of hire good people and get out of their way. I do believe structure is important. So, maybe there would have been some more guidance that would have been good there. But how did you, now that you're in college and you're recruiting, so you're coming off coaching some really amazing people, future Olympians that you didn't even know at that point, right? What how did you find recruiting? Like, did you try to go after 47 point people, and how did that work ego wise?
It was very tough ego wise the first year and a half. One, because I'm literally at the highest you could possibly be at the high school level, with the state record, the multiple national champion, All-Americans, all that stuff. Then I go to a place that's really never had a program. Right. 2, no athletic scholarships for me at all. And 3, no facility at all. So, yes, it's a little bit warmer down there, but it's still the Midwest. And it was very tough, but I had to remind myself that it took me 3 years to get to, or 3 or 4 years to get to where I was with intensity. So, I didn't realize that at that point, but, and it's hard to think about that while you're in that moment, 100%. But it was hard. It was hard. And, I had a lot of frustrations at that time for sure, but I was also compounded with me not really knowing how college athletics work. So I looked to, Twitter, or outside looking in, seeing how I thought college coaches were or acted. And so I was real closed off. I was, you gotta be this way, gotta be this way, and I wasn't being, I know you say this all the time, I wasn't being a person, a person the coach is kind of the same. And I wasn't being a person. I was just being a coach, like a person who just reads off the script and you got to do this.
You are making your identity the word coach, not Hugh Jamal Johnson, who one of my roles is coaching, but also father, husband, etc. Yeah. Right.
So that first year and a half, it was definitely tough, but something happened in 2019, I think it was 2019, where it's a big disagreement with the team. And even though it was a very tough moment for me and the team, it needed to happen, because at that point going forward, I was completely myself. Everything, like, I remember we went down to Memphis and we went and saw, I think it was Avengers Endgame. We went down to the University of Memphis to a track meet. And that moment, 2019, was what really, let me know, okay, you got to be yourself the entire time. You got to, be more vocal. You got to be honest. Even though I'm not a vocal person, just me, cracking little jokes here and there, or, stuff like that. I wasn't doing any of that stuff at first. I wasn't talking about the stuff I like talking about. I wasn't talking about music. I wasn't talking about shoes. I wasn't talking about the Lions. And so, now that I'm actually being Jamal again, it was a lot of fun going forward.
That's a big lesson because what I hear is, relationship is extremely important, whether it's your coworkers or your team as a coach, right? And so I hear you were kind of shutting off that part of you. Like
Definitely.
you ain't gonna get to know Jamal, but you're gonna have to work with Coach Johnson, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So was there a big transformation when you started being yourself and a coach with the relationship side, and therefore maybe their performances got positive?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they'll tell you even to this day that, I'm very happy that, you just you changed, and it's essentially getting back to what my roots were.
Mm.
But yeah, I did change, and it was very necessary. And I if I didn't change, I wouldn't be here at Mansfield, and,
Mm.
and, and that's for sure. And I remember telling one of my high jumpers, one of the first people who was there, who I didn't recruit, but he was already on campus. The day that I was leaving, he was the first person I told, and he was like, "I'm happy for you, because from when you got here to now, it's completely night and day. And I'm very happy that you get to move on."
Mm.
And that was very telling, because he was one of the guys who I had the issue with.
Mm.
And that was a full circle moment for sure.
It's amazing. I'm kind of drawing some parallels to the coaching profession to the sales profession because there's no major for coaching. You don't. I'm sure. I know there is. Like there are some, right?
Hmm.
But it's. I assume it's more of the physiology and procedural things like that. But no one teaches you how to be a coach. You have to learn how to be a coach, and usually on the job training how to be a coach, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes our models of coaching aren't the healthiest, right? Maybe we see who gets a lot of the pub, the Bobby Knights,
Exactly.
who's the coach that headbutted their player, those kind of things, right? And sometimes it's like, well, maybe is that who I'm supposed to be? Like that's coach, just in our world, the track side of it. It's kind of the same in sales. There's no major for sales, and a lot of the um, leaders or not mentors, but the people that we see as sales, we see the Wolf of Wall Street, we see the used car salesman. It's like, is that what sales is? And you have
Yeah.
to learn it on the job, and
Hmm.
and some of us figure it out earlier than others, and some of us don't, and they're not as successful. Same with coaching. Some of us learn it earlier than others and go on to have great careers that affect kids positively, and others don't. And maybe still stay as coaches, but just don't
Yeah.
have life satisfaction, and their kids are grateful when they graduate because they don't have to deal with this guy or gal anymore. So I'm glad this was a lesson that you learned. Like I'm really happy that you went through it. Like I hate that you went through it, right? For their sake and yours, but I'm super pumped that you did at such an early age as well,
For
right? Because
sure.
it's helped move the career forward, right?
Hmm.
So why leave Southern Indiana and why Mansfield? I assume
Well,
that was the next step. I'm sorry, I'm jumping to conclusions here. Was Mansfield the next step?
yeah, that was the
Okay,
next
yeah,
step.
yeah.
Um, After my first 2 years there, I didn't know. Well, I was content with just being. I didn't know how far I wanted to take coaching at that point. Um, and typically I would say one thing one year, like, I don't ever want to be, a head coach. I don't ever want to coach in D1. I don't ever want to coach at a big school or whatever, no matter what, division it is. And then I started getting these ideas in my head. And then typically, if I have an idea about something, or if it's something I really want to do and I start saying it, it happens. And so I get scared when I start thinking like that, because I sometimes don't think I'm completely ready for the next step. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But I had I think it was three things that had to happen before I left the USI. One, I had to have a title change.
Hmm.
So it's either, assistant head coach, or, whatever else, because I was essentially running my own program at that time. Someone had to had to at least double my salary, and I needed to be at a university that had a facility.
Hmm.
And that happened. That happened. So, my time at USI, I didn't have any, scholarships or anything like that. I recruited very well. And that was the number one thing that I thought I would struggle with. Just being a college coach, is because I know I'm not really outgoing like that.
Hmm.
I think that was probably one of my strengths. And we broke a number of score records. I had an All-American in a 60-meter dash, who actually I didn't recruit. He was a freshman. He is from St. Louis. I think he ran like 10.9 in high school, and he was at USI to play soccer. And then that indoor season of his freshman year, after soccer was done, his dad emailed me saying, hey, I think my son still wants to run track. So I met with him, and I think maybe 5 practices we had, he decided to go out and run like 6.85, which and that was crazy. And then he ended up making it to the national championship. He ran 6.77. We probably had 10 practices total the entire indoor season. And this is a guy who ran 10.9 the year before. And we were down in Birmingham, and then we got sent home for COVID.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we had a lot of success at USI given the resources. We didn't, like I said, we didn't have a track. However, we did have a brand spanking new 5,000 seat basketball arena, and we were allowed to practice in the concourse. So we had a loop, I guess. We had a huge Bermuda grass soccer field, which was great for the fall. So we were able to get on soft surface for the fall for sure. But yeah, I took the job at Mansfield. I think I had 2 interviews that summer of 2020. And I knew that it was my time because I had my nose pierced. And so I told myself, when I get an interview for a head coaching job, I will take out my nose ring. So me and my family, we went to this park that we normally went to in Evansville. And I got home, it's probably 12:30 in the afternoon, and my nose ring isn't in my nose. I have no idea where it was at all, just because it was an L one. So like if it came out, I wouldn't know if it came out because it would have pulled, and it was just gone. I'm like, okay, well, it's the time. It's the time for me to make that next step because I believe in the universe, saying things and God giving us signs. And that was definitely a sign because I verbalized if, when I get a head coaching position, I'm going to take my nose ring out, and then the nose ring just disappeared. And so I had the interview in August. It was a week after my wedding. And I had the second interview in September. I knew from the first interview that I was going to get. I just felt it. Then I had the second interview in September. And then for whatever reason, it took 2 months for me to actually get hired. So I started here November 28th of 2020. And at that point, everyone was already home for Thanksgiving and Christmas because of COVID. So I'm starting here, and I hadn't met the team yet at all. I didn't actually meet the team until February 1st. Wow. And since there was no sprint or jumps coach here before me, the sprinters and jumpers didn't do anything over the fall. So we pretty much started from scratch on February 1st of 2021. And we have some talent here. Honestly, we have some talent here. And, just 2-3 months, not even 3. So yeah, about 2 months of practice of being together, period. We were able to win a PSAC championship, a conference championship in a 200, which was the first time that's ever happened in school history. That same guy came back and took second overall in the 400. We had a jab thrower. He won jab. We had an 800-meter runner take third in the 800. And our 4x4 scored as well on the men's side. And it's actually the tied the highest place we've ever scored in school history. Wow. And the highest points we ever scored in school history. Wow. So from that moment, our team morale has been extremely high.
Sure,
and
yeah.
I'm very, very excited.
It's interesting that you got there around Thanksgiving-ish and didn't have the team until February 1. So call that, 2 months, 60 days. What did you do, if anything, to prepare yourself as the head coach? Meaning, obviously there's a lot to learn about your roster and, some of the rules that maybe you didn't think about because you were the assistant at USI versus the head and all that kind of stuff. I assume hopefully you have a staff, so there's learning of other people, things like that. Did you reach out to anybody, to ask them how did they prepare for head coach, their first time head coach, anything like that, or was it just all like I'm gonna learn it on my own with my administration helping support me?
It was tough because, like I said, it was during COVID, so things were pretty much shut down. I know you talked to Zontavius
Mm-hmm.
at Benedictine. It was some of the similar situation where people just weren't in their offices,
Right.
and there was really no one to teach me, how things go at Mansfield. So, reached out to Rondell, a couple other people to kind of help me become a head coach. But there's only so many things you can say. You actually have to
Right.
do it, experience those things. And I'm still learning now, I'm still learning now. I mean, because the paperwork here is different than the paperwork situation at USI. So it's just, different things that you have to learn. And at USI, obviously, well, not obvious, it's, a bigger budget at USI. Certain things you don't really have to worry about at USI as you do here. So it's just, like I said, certain things that you're learning about. And this being my first full year here, I'm definitely getting a lesson.
It's obvious you can coach, and that's going to continue to get better as you gain more experience and talk to more people, and maybe do other clinics and whatever, all that kind of stuff, the coaching education side of it.
Right.
How are you? Another thing that we don't teach coaches. It's interesting. You talked about your first interview way back in the day for Wayne Memorial, and you're like, I don't even know what to wear. Where my mind automatically goes to is like, man, our head coaches need to prepare our assistant coaches for that. I know it's hard because it's like, well, I don't want them to leave. Well, that or they stay and they're very good for you. It's helping people, right? That it'll come around and be help for you. So one of the things that we don't do, you have to learn it on the job as a head coach, is staff management, not roster management. You also have to learn that, but whether you have full-time coaches on your staff, part-time coaches, volunteers, etc., how are you working through that process of a staff of coaches, whether it's, I don't know how, you'll tell us here in a second, but I don't know if you have 2 other people, 20 other people helping you with your mission to lift up your program to conference championships and nationals.
Well, we have the distance coach, who was a head cross country coach. He's been here for 21 years, and we now have a pole vault coach. But starting in the summer, I am looking to hire 1 or 2 more assistants, just because I didn't really want to branch out too much this year, just because it's my first full year here, and I didn't want to make the mistake of hiring the wrong people who could deter from my vision for Mansfield. And so I decided to, do a lot of this stuff my first year on my own. And then once we have a strong core here and we have our values, we can hire, or I can hire someone else going forward.
How are you wrestling with that prospect? Because you obviously already thinking about it, right? Because you talked about I don't want to hire the wrong people or person. So how are you working through evaluation of candidates? You have your experience of what you did when you interviewed, but you're on the other side of that lens now. Are you doing anything to prepare for what you're looking for, who and how and when and things like that?
Keeping tabs. I mean, I have a few people in mind. Just seeing how they interact, certain things, seeing how their current teams are doing, or if it's someone who hasn't been coaching yet, is asking them certain questions, seeing how they respond to certain questions. There's some of the things I'm looking at, but going to convention, meeting people, rubbing elbows, just throwing some feelers out there and seeing who's interested and who's not, because Mansfield is Mansfield is not Detroit. Mansfield is not Evansville. Mansfield has about 2,000 people in the town, and so to be in Mansfield means that you really want to be in Mansfield. There aren't really a lot of things going on around here. I think the closest bigger city is Williamsport, and that's about 45 minutes away. So, also having someone who understands that already, instead of someone who was expecting, to be in this big city lifestyle, and that's not the case. So
That's good. It's good that that's spot on, right? Because not only for your staff but for your recruiting, right? You go get a kid from, you know, I don't want to call it inner city Miami, but Miami, and you're like, I'm not sure you're gonna like Mansfield, my man. We ain't got no beaches, we ain't got nothing here. You
Oh
know, there's
no.
that. So that's good to have that perspective and not that ego driven of like, oh, I can sign a kid from L.A., Miami. It's me. It's not the school in the town. Well, that's not correct. It all plays into it. So I'm glad you
It
have that.
does.
I'm glad you have that self awareness there of that aspect of it. Would you have anybody that you call a mentor in regards to your head coaching development? Is there anybody that you rely on when things get tough? Everything stops at the head coach's desk here, right?
Mhm.
And it plays over into our personal life with with your family and things like that. Is there anybody that you consider a mentor? Like if I need something when I'm feeling down or I'm stuck on something, I pick up that phone and this
I
person
think
helps.
there are a number of people I can reach out to, but me being me, I don't. I don't. But I would say, Coach Hilliard and definitely
Mm,
Rondell Ruff are two people though I can talk to. And one of the things I know I brought up Rondell a lot, but one of the reasons I do like talking to Rondell is because it's not just track.
mm,
He's married with two kids. I'm married with two kids. He's from Detroit.
mm-hmm.
He loves shoes just like I do. So we can kind of connect on things outside of track as well. And so yeah, he's
Good.
one of the people who um, I hold dear as far as
Mm.
in my career.
Yeah, I'm glad you have him, and vice versa, honestly, because it helps him become better as he
Yeah, absolutely.
hears himself talking it out with you. And you're right; it can't always be about track, right? You have so much more going for you as a son and a husband and a dad. Those are way bigger roles than coach. Like it has to be in perspective there. So I'm glad you have that person. I think that's very important for your development long term. Is having that until you get to the point one day when you're old like me and Rondell and you're that guy, and I'm interviewing someone,
Yeah.
I'm like, who's your mentor? And like, yeah, Jamal Johnson, that's my guy. Like he helps me with so much stuff. So that's awesome that you have that. Jamal, let's start wrapping up today. Tell me, you came into Mansfield at a very peculiar time, right, with COVID, and it's a whole different world than what it was when you joined Southern Indiana back in the day, right? What's got you excited about Mansfield as you look towards this season, and even kind of given a vision? You talked about having a vision for your program the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. What's got you excited there to run your own program at Mansfield?
Our visibility. I think now that we're recruiting a little bit better on the sprints and jump side, I'm excited for Mansfield to be, one of the schools that recruits automatically say, okay, well, yes, they have a strong sprints and jumps program. I'm excited to do that. I know college athletics isn't all about, competing and stuff like that, but that's important. That's important to me. I mean, I'm not in the business to just have a job. You know what I mean? I am in the business to compete. And so, one of our top recruits who signed this year, she hadn't even heard of Mansfield University until someone I signed last year. So yeah, just getting our name out there because we are in a very competitive conference, the PSAC, across all sports. And so historically we're one of the schools that isn't super competitive, but changing that mindset, even with the athletes that we have right now, is starting to happen. I'm excited what that will look like going forward.
Well, and it'll make it even sweeter, man. So when you win that conference, like you accomplished something because you're going to be beating some really good, traditionally long-term, strong teams. So it just makes it that much more satisfying when you do it. And nothing tells me that you're not going to do it, man. Putting your mind to it,
We'll see.
getting a staff surrounded by around you, and continue recruiting. Because I think when you keep being your authentic self, if you look back in your journey and you've expressed a lot of stories here that really backs this up. When you look back at your journey, when you allowed yourself to be who you are, you had success. When you tried to put like this mask on, it's like, okay, well, this is who I'm air quotes here supposed to be.
Yeah.
It didn't really go that well, and I'm willing to bet, from my experience of coaching for 10 years on the college level, that those times when you were trying to be what you thought other people wanted you to be or what you thought you were supposed to be, also were times that you weren't your happiest as a person, as Jamal
Yeah.
as well. And when you were
Hmm.
allowed to be when you allowed yourself to be who you are, man, life was great. Not only what the kids were doing on the track, but you and your own, spirit. It was lifted up, man. So,
Hmm.
so I think as you continue to grow into and continue to be who you are and who you were created to be, I think success is just pouring over you, man. I think you're going to do a lot of great things at Mansfield and other places that your career takes you.
We'll see. I mean, the coaching education that I've been doing as well through the USTF has helped me a lot. It has.
Awesome. Good.
I've done the strength and conditioning certification, the sprints and hurdles one, and the jumps one.
Good.
And I'm also a part of the executive committee, the
Oh
USTF.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm the
Good for
rep for our
you.
conference, and so I'm trying to keep going forward for sure.
Now we talked about Marvel movies. Are you a Star Wars guy at all?
Not in the slightest.
Now, I'm a little bit of a Star Wars guy, not like some people out there. I'm much more Marvel, right? But one of my favorite things from Star Wars is Yoda's very famous line, "Do or do not, there is no try." So you're not trying to be a leader. You're not trying to do things. You're doing, my man. You are doing, and that's a real testament to your leadership, natural and learned abilities there, man. So bravo to you. You should be commended for doing those things. You don't have to do those things. That helps you become a better coach and a better person. So you're doing, man. You're not trying. You're getting it done.
I appreciate you saying that.
Jamal, man, thank you so much, man. Um, one of the most valuable things you can ever give me personally is your time. And so, we've been chopping up for an hour and a half. I didn't know if we'd get there today, to be honest with you. I'm missing a meet. I got to go tell my boss, sorry, I missed a meeting because I literally, I was looking at my clock. Dear listener, I was supposed to be gone 15 minutes ago now for my big boss. And I told him before we hit record, I was like, man, look, I gotta, it's my big boss. I can't miss this one. And honestly, I'm just so fascinated with your story and the lessons you've learned and the lessons that you will teach to others. I was like, man, I'll apologize. I'll ask for forgiveness over permission, man. So this was a
Well,
blast, man. This was a blast. And
uh,
when he gets real mad at me, I'll tell him, well, look, man, it was Coach Johnson at Mansfield, so we'll double his prices and we'll get it back, boss. It's
oh
all
Lord,
good.
I'm kind of upset. I only got an hour and a half. I was trying to beat Lamont's record.
No chance, my friend. Lamont will last forever. Although I can't remember, did he actually? Who was my guy, the former coach at USC? We had a long time with him, which was super valuable. Longtime coach at USC and Long Beach Community College and Long Beach State University. Real legacy icon in this sport, and of course slips my mind, which makes me a terrible person. Ron Alice,
Okay.
who's an amazing coach. He was a 4 hour guy, man. I think he might have beaten. I got to go back and check now. Might have beaten Lamont's record, but Lamont gets the most his was more flavorful, man. Mont's the man. I love him. And I have to imagine he beats you in the shoe game, right? I mean, come on.
Oh, okay. So, so me and Lamont, I go back. Me trying to spend more time doing this thing. Uh, so me and Lamont
You,
actually.
you ain't making 4 hours. Let me go tell you. I have to cut it off before 4 hours. But go ahead. I want to hear how you think your shoe collection is better than Mont, only so that Mont hits it up on Twitter and shows you out. That's what I want to see.
So me and Lamont actually crossed paths while at Eastern Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
He was a women's coach at Eastern Michigan under Sue Parks. But even though I was just a student there, I still remember him in the student center walking on recruit up to get something to eat. And it was the shoes that, stuck out. Like, who is this guy? Like, is he the new track coach? And so, and then he was also at my conference in a GLVC because he was at Wisconsin Parkside.
Right.
So we knew each other there. And we just kind of been crossing paths ever since then. But I would think the only reason he has a quote better shoe game because he's over 20 years old, man,
Oh,
almost 20 years older than me. So
dang, Mont.
he got the longevity. I've just only been able to afford my own shoes for about 8 years now.
I am. I normally don't play stir the pot guy, but I'm gonna be stirring the pot on this one. When you're listening to this, it's April. I'm gonna be hitting on Twitter and getting Mont into the game, and then I'm gonna sit back with that GIF with the popcorn eater. I'm just gonna watch you two guys go at it because I got no shoe game, so I can't play this game at all. But I know if I get you two beefing on your shoe collections, all these sneakerheads, right? Everybody's going to be coming in
That's
to
true.
talk about it and say, "You guys ain't nothing," and someone's going to show out some amazing original Jordans or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he has some. He
I
has some for sure.
I have
He
never
does.
had a pair of Jordans and probably never will, and I'm okay with that. Jamal, I'm okay with you, man. This was a blast. I had an absolute blast. I told you we ain't making 4 hours, so we got to cut off right here. But
Okay.
I am thankful, man, and I really am excited to see. It's important for us to have coaches in their first 10 years of coaching and all the way up to their 60th year in coaching, because it's going to be so exciting to see your journey continue to be built out and the positive influence that you're going to have over young people, specifically 18 to 22-year-olds there on the college level. And it's gonna be awesome to watch, man. I'm sitting there with my popcorn. I'm watching you grow your journey, man. I hope to see it continue to flourish.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jamal. Appreciate you.
All right.